Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we're back for part 2 of our conversation with John Meoli, where we're going to focus in this episode on the minor leagues, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, Orioles on the Verge is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today, get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, the game starts here. And as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome a new member to our Patreon community. And with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, earlier this week we had One Finger Willie, and now we have Grant DeVivo, who signed up at the AA level, also known as Two Toes Stewie. Thank you for joining the patronage, and we'll see you in the Discord if you haven't signed up already. So yeah, thank you, Grant, for signing up to be a patron.
So I'll introduce John Meoli, writer of the Baltimore Banner. And John, I'll just say your record has now extended to 11 appearances this year. So
Whoa.
Good to have you back. You're just increasing the gap now. Connor Newcomb might be in second. Now he might have surpassed Stephen Loftus as well, but you're firming up the lead.
Don't let him get close.
Well, we'll dive in now, and we'll have a full view of the leaderboard at some point. I know Andy Koska is climbing up there. Danielle Allentuck has moved quickly despite having not made her first appearance until last year. But we'll start with this. You've been covering the Orioles pitching development extensively this year over at the Banner. How much has it evolved in the past year or two, and what are the results we're seeing this season?
Gosh, the results are really good. I don't think I can go to, Camden Yards or a minor league affiliate without someone who works in player development pointing out that the Orioles are either top of the strikeout leaderboard of all organizations in the minors or near the top. They're not always ever sure, but they know that it's near the top. And there's a lot of factors that have played into that. As I was writing about it in terms of the Cade Povich debut, I kind of thought, it seemed like there was almost like a phase one, which was like get the most out of the guys who were here, which they did a pretty good job at. They got all those 2018, 2019 Bowie pitchers to the big leagues. Some of them still here, obviously, Keegan Aiken and Dean Kramer, some of them still in the mix. Some of them in other organizations, Grayson Rodriguez in a class of his own. Kyle Bradish kind of fits in that mold, even though he was, traded for at the end of that year. And then phase two, as the Orioles, built out their staff even further on the minor league development side and got all those P3 guys that John Means worked with in St. Louis, was kind of implementing that on a broad scale. The pandemic didn't help. I believe that there's only a couple pitchers from that 2019 draft still in the organization. The only pitcher, there's a handful from 2020 in that shortened draft, and the free agency still there. But things really started to ramp up 2021. More so in 2022 and last year, they actually used a ton of early picks on pitchers. I think they, over the course of the last few years, have developed a really strong understanding of what they are looking for and what they can work with and what they can they can get the best out of, and they have an incredibly talented staff from top to bottom who are all working towards the same goals and making that happen. And you have an organization now where most nights, if you go to an affiliate, there's going to be 2 starting pitchers, like starting pitcher type dudes who are really, really talented. I went to Luis De Leon's first outing in Aberdeen, and he was piggybacking, and I was thinking I was just going to have like a chill couple innings, and then Zach Fruit threw his first pitch at 97, and I was like, wait a second, what? And I started texting people, and and all of a sudden, like, there's a story on him in the works that I think is going to illustrate a lot of what we're talking about pretty well. But like, I hadn't, hand up, mea culpa, like I hadn't thought about Zach Fruit even a little bit. And all of a sudden, like, you see a guy with multiple pitches who has improved dramatically from the time he was drafted. And I feel like you can't go to an Orioles minor league game at this point, which I'm doing, a relatively decent amount, without seeing like multiple pitchers who are really, really interesting. And they all have weapons to strike out guys, from left side of the plate, right side of the plate. They all have fastballs that miss bats. They all do similar-ish things, but they all have different backgrounds. Some are late round picks. Jackson Baumeister, early round pick, international guys. All of them are working within the same plan and working towards the same goals and have the same KPIs, and they're trying to meet the same steps. And it's really impressive, the operation that they built. I'm sure I've said this to you guys. I've told them, there's no more like last year was going to be the last of like the, hey, they're doing stuff behind the scenes, this is all going to work out stories. I think that, it was a long time coming, but I also think that the results are really playing out the way they would hope to right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've had patrons say, who's Edgar Portes? And it's a guy who we've talked about, but it's easy to see how he could kind of fall under the radar. But a lot of awesome pitchers. Year of the pitcher, as we have coined it over here. Do you think, speaking of pitching, that we see a DL Hall type of path for Chase McDermott this season, in that the organization views him as a potential rotation piece, but they're maybe viewing him this year as a potential late season bullpen addition? Seems like he's really lighting it up down there. If Cade Povich is ready, he might not be too far behind.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is something that, truly it's not ideal for everyone's development, but you can't just be relying on like, the AAA bullpen to help the big league bullpen. Like, there are just a lot of, there are a lot of talented, pitchers in this organization. Some of them are going to end up in the bullpen. And if that happens, with Chase McDermott temporarily this season, there's good and bad. The good is you get to be in the big leagues. You get to, you get to face the best hitters in the world and show your stuff and see how your stuff plays in the big leagues and learn from that and continue to grow in an environment that gives you more, God, I'm going to say the word fertilizer, but like gives you more, like there's more to grow based off what you learn in the big leagues than anywhere else. The drawback is that once you're that guy who like has pitched in the bullpen and has pitched in relief, it's hard to stop being that guy if that's like the need that happens. We saw it with DL Hall. I think we kind of saw it with Mike Baumann. I'm sure there are other examples I can't think of, but there's also a lot of value to that. I think that if you mentioned DL Hall, like for all the upside and talent that everyone in the organization recognized, I think there's a certain walk rate in the minors that it's hard for a team to project like success as a starter as. DL Hall was right around that range, and I'm not sure where Chase McDermott's at now. I know that he has spurts where he's not walking anybody, and sometimes he has spurts. So I think if they're going to make that consideration, that would probably play into it. But I'm fascinated to see what it looks like, because I think that, as long as he can keep that stuff around the zone, we know what happens. Guys don't hit it very well. And he strikes out a lot of batters. And the same as Cade Povich, like we mentioned last episode, if he's able to do that at the big league level, then you really have something.
Yeah, I play a fun game with Chase McDermott starts. Is after I watch the game, usually I keep Baseball Savant up if I'm watching a Tides game because we get that juicy StatCast data. But with Chase McDermott, I don't watch, and I like to play a game of guess what percentage of strikes he landed the fastball at. And when it is a bad line, that's normally like 35, less, it's under 40%. When he has a great night, it's seriously, we kind of joked like it's just throw strikes with the fastball and you have success. I feel like pitching is not that simple, but with McDermott, it's like, it's hard to say it's not. Like when, I know you've written about this when he was in Bowie, it's like, if he just throws strikes and commands a strike zone with that fastball, guys can barely touch him. And the final box score line is 5-6 innings, 1 run, 1-2 walks, 8, 9, 10 strikeouts. It's been fun to watch his development this year, though.
Yeah, and you saw specifically last year. I think it's probably the case this year, but like the strike zone, the automatic strike zone AAA, like really focused him. Like he had one start where it was just like, oh wait, and like none of these are going to be strikes, and it was him and Povich, and Ramsey was like, yeah, throw in the strike zone, dude. Like, watch what happens. You're going to like it. And if you don't, you're not going to like it. And like, it's just as simple as that. There's a lot of athleticism there, that there's a lot of ability to throw strikes. It's just making it consistent. And I think that, when guys can't do that consistently, their path typically ends up in the bullpen, but there's such upside in the rotation that you definitely are going to have to consider that long and hard too.
I would love to talk for 3 hours about the pitching down the farm because there's 40 different pitchers I feel like we could highlight. But let's talk about some hitters real quick. And one being Dylan Beavers. I know you did like a deep dive case study into Beavers and his development over the last year or so. He's having a really solid year down at AA right now. 8 home runs already in 48 games. Striking out a little bit more, but he's still walking at a 14% clip. He's got a 131 WRC plus. Beavers, I feel like, is another guy who doesn't get enough credit down there in Bowie. What have you seen from him this year? What are you hearing about his development this year, and how has he improved, and where does he still need to improve some more?
Yeah, so swing school wasn't back in session this year. He got a break from having talked to me like every month about where his swing was. But I have caught up with him. We're working on something right now, but I guess to spoil it a little bit, last year was a lot about swing mechanics and what his swing was going to look like. That's typical, I guess, in the first year of a guy's development. And the second year is, adding strength and working on doing damage. He has a really good hit tool. That's part of the reason the Orioles drafted him. He can get his bat to a lot of balls and flip them into the outfield. But he didn't spend as much of 2023 as I think he wanted to, and the Orioles wanted him to, looking to do damage. So there's been a little more emphasis on him using all the mechanics he worked on last year to kind of focus on a swing that can do damage on pitches in a lot of places. So he's a lot more focused on, instead of trying to, flip a ball the other way, drive the ball the other way. Instead, he's trying to drive more of those pitches that he can drive, which is a lot of them, and get off that A swing more often. There's, the way he put it was like, take more risks. And that's not to say like swing at everything, but like if you get into like a plus count, if you think you're going to get a pitch that you can drive, try to drive it. That might lead to, as it has, a little more strikeouts. It's also led to a lot more hard contact. It's led to a lot more power overall. And that's the missing piece. There's, a ton of athleticism there. It's really good defense. It's really good. He's really good on the bases. And he has 8 home runs. And the last piece to click for him was always going to be power. It's going to be the distinguishing factor of what kind of big leaguer he's going to be. And if this is the trajectory that he's on, and if he continues on this path of driving the ball, to all fields and being able to do more damage than he did last year when he was just trying to like hit for average, then we're talking about a really impactful player. I think that what we're seeing so far is intentional, and it's not a coincidence.
Samuel Basayo got off to a little bit of a slow start this year, but he is pretty much tearing the cover off the ball now and dominating AA pitching. Where do you think he stands in his development, and how far can he realistically go this year?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen like 4 of his home runs in person. I think the one on Saturday or Friday like went over the scoreboard in Bowie. I don't know where it landed. It's hard to tell once you get up in the trees, but like he is crushing the ball. I think that, the slow start is a little understandable. He didn't really have a regular spring training. He didn't have, he wasn't like doing full baseball stuff even for a while into the season. It was pretty slow going that first week before he got into the field at first base. A little better until he started catching, and also warmed up in Bowie. That's a huge factor, for a lot of young players as they're getting into professional baseball. There's a ton of factors that have led to him being as productive as he is right now, and this is I remember we were talking about like what it would look like if he was having a good year last year. He is like on track for, if not exceeding, what like the hopes would be for a good season in Bowie this year. I mean, if we're talking to somebody who's going to end up with 20-something home runs in the high minors at his age, if we're talking somebody, who's probably going to end up with like an 850 or like above 850 OPS at this level in the minors, like there's a very small sample set of players, I think, who have done that at that stage in their careers. And they're probably all pretty good big leaguers. So I think that where he plays as a catcher and his relative inexperience and some of the things you want any young player to iron out, he's somebody who can not only just hit the ball but drive the ball no matter where you pitch it to him. So focusing more on the pitches he can really drive and being more consistent with that defensive work is always going to be something that I think the Orioles will focus on with him. It's not going to be, I wouldn't say like the most, like it's not going to be a rapid trajectory. Like he's already moving pretty fast. He's going to be, he's probably going to end the season in Norfolk if we're being honest, and he's going to be 20 years old at the end of the season. So I don't think they're going to rush him per se, but they're going to let him develop at the pace he's at, which is a very good pace. And I think that I just think there's incredible upside there. You're seeing the talent like on a regular basis. You're seeing the improvements. You're seeing how he understands how pitchers attack him, how he internalizes that, and how he counters that. And it ends up with the ball over the fence, and it ends up with a ton of hard contact. I think in the same game on Friday night that he hit that ball out in Bowie, I think he also like one hopped the right field wall. The ball might not have gone like 15 feet off the ground. It was so hard hit. It was one of those balls that like you know balls that go over the fence and are hit hard, but when a ball's hit that hard, that low, I was just like, this kid's 19. This is insane. And that's the kind of talent we're talking about.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
like talk with him and hang around him personally? Because I feel like I've got the thread going on Twitter of the strike three calls or just the funny faces he makes at the plate. I know there's been videos in the past too of, it seems like Basayo is like a Colton Cowser-esque character down there, someone who fans will, if they already don't love him for the home run power, they're going to love his personality. Have you seen that from him?
Yeah, I have. I talked to him, with the help of the manager down in Aberdeen last year, Roberto Mercado, for a story then, and I'll be around the dugout in Bowie a lot this year, not hanging out, but like I'm there for work, I promise. But come up and say hi, and and just seeing him interact with his coaches, with his teammates, this is somebody who gets great joy from what he's doing. You can tell that. And I think you can also tell the flip side. When I was down at spring training, and everyone else was playing baseball, and he was rehabbing his elbow. Like he didn't look like he was having a lot of fun because he wasn't having a lot of fun. That's a really tough thing that he went through. And I think even early in the season, you can kind of tell that he wasn't like fully himself. And I think a lot of things you see are a byproduct of the success he's having on the field. He's having a ton of fun because he's playing really well. And I think that, there can be drawbacks to that, but I don't think there are going to be drawbacks to that because he's on a path to be a really, really, really good baseball player. So spend a little time around him, talk to him a bit. And I think that he's having as much fun as it looks like is what I would say.
Yeah, I firmly believe he's the Orioles' first international superstar in the making. I think I tweeted out Friday night his stats since April 28th, which is like 3 weeks into the AA season, and they only got better in the 2 days since I tweeted it. He's batting .331 with a .988 OPS, 175 WRC plus, 9% walk rate, 17.9% strikeout rate, 262 ISO. 19 years old in AA Billy, pretty ridiculous. So, you predicted he'd be a top 5 prospect a year before he was. You might have been a little bit low on him, but your next prospect prediction was that Jackson Ballmeister would be a top 5 prospect by the end of the season. The walks have been a little bit high in his first 11 career starts, but the stuff is clearly among the best in the organization. Maybe the quietest. I feel like we haven't heard much about him nationally or anything, and he's got an ERA under 2. Still feeling good about that prediction?
Yeah. I mean, I went to see him early in the season, and I wrote about it in the critically acclaimed Arms on the Farm series, and I just wanted to see what it looked like in April because somebody like I was thinking about specifically like Trace Bright, like somebody who came in like great fastball, great curveball. We got some work to do. And if you saw him in the first few months of last season in Aberdeen, you might not have thought that there was, that he was the pitcher that he would become once all that work started paying off and his changeup turned into the, really good pitch that he was. I saw Trace pitch on Friday, and I was there with a scout who had seen him a couple of times in Aberdeen, and he was like, this is a completely different guy. So I say that to kind of say I wanted to see Jackson Ballmeister early because I thought that if I saw him in August, I would be seeing a much different pitcher. And I saw a really good pitcher that day. It was almost like the Dylan Bundy memorial, like, oh, shoot, I need to throw 2 changeups or else I'm going to get in trouble. Like, and he threw 2 changeups like the last batter he faced. I thought that was really funny. But he's a really interesting pitcher. I'm gonna ask a question now. I haven't looked at the June rankings. What are your top 5 pitchers in your rankings right now? Sorry, I was going to look it up myself.
I'm pulling it up.
I've just been talking too much.
Bob's got the list.
Let's see. All right. So pitching wise, we have Povich is our number 1 pitcher, then McDermott, Seth Johnson, Jackson Ballmeister, then Luis De Leon. That's our top 5.
All right. What about the next 5?
All right. Trace Bright, as you mentioned. Alex Pham hanging on by a thread, potentially. Juan Nunez, feel like, I know he's hurt right now, but he's really come up this year. Kiefer Lord has not yet made his debut. We think he's going to be rehabbing soon. And Brandon Young, number 10.
See, so like I'm thinking about like straight up only ranking. Like I'm just trying to put together like a pitcher list because I've seen a lot of these guys this year specifically. I'm trying to get to as many games as I can because my life circumstances might change. It might be hard to go to Bowie to see a minor league baseball game in the near future. And like I was writing down during a game last week who I would be like who would be in the mix, and I got to like 25 names, and that's just an insane thing to think about. Not all guys who are on like the are going to be Kyle Bradish, and not all guys who are going to be Dean Kramer, not all guys who are going to be Mike Bauman, but like guys who are going to be like interesting guys, like interesting pitchers with really interesting stuff, and who have been, taught in a way that I personally believe is really, conducive to major league success, or is at least better than, some of the guys we mentioned early in their career. So it's really, really there's so many. There's so many of them. I want to do this project, and I also don't want to because it's going to be so daunting and like we're also talking about a lot of sameness. Like a lot of these guys do the same things and about the same level, so it's just going to be in the eye of the beholder. But I asked that because I'm going to be asking that question to a lot of people in the near future, and there's going to be a lot of different answers. And I think the fact there's a lot of different answers, and I think Jackson Balmeister is going to be on a lot of those, top however many lists. But I think the fact there's a lot of answers and none of them are going to be wrong kind of speaks to what has been built here.
Didn't even mention Moises Chase, Cameron Weston. So many guys.
Yeah, Zach Fruit.
Yeah, Zach Fruit.
Michael Ferret, Trey Gibson, Carlos Tavera, Levi Willis.
Yeah.
Let's play the game.
Let's name some guys. Like, you can name a lot of guys, and but I said this too. I texted Jeff Arnold at one of the minor league games or one of the spring training games I was at Pittsburgh. I think Ryan Long pitched 2 pretty good innings. He was throwing 96 and struck out end of a spring training game, early in spring training. You get what you're gonna get, and but I was you were the Frederick broadcaster for years. How many pitchers that were better than Ryan Long did you commentate on? And it wasn't a lot. And that just kind of speaks to what's being built here.
We're not forcing John to say any of this. We've been mocked. We've been made fun of the whole thing in years past for our love for the pitching process. Yeah, the cupboard's bare comment. The whole thing, we've stuck by this pitching development, and I feel like it really is breaking through this year. And hopefully we're seeing more and more guys get that national respect as well. But it's really refreshing to hear an outside voice kind of confirm all of our beliefs there. But to kind of switch it up again, speaking of Aberdeen, we're talking about Jackson Balmeister down in Aberdeen. Have you gotten a good look or been able to talk to Matt Horvath? I feel like this is good timing. I know the Orioles just put out one of those flying whatever they have the videos. They put out highlighting Horvath on the fly. He's having a tremendous week. 3 doubles, a home run the other day, a home run again yesterday. 2nd round pick. He's kind of following that trend of guys who they start out slow in Aberdeen. It's the first full year. But now he looks like he's starting to turn a corner. Is Matt Horvath going to be the next guy to follow that trend this year?
It seems like that's what's happening right now. I think that, the same way we talk about the Orioles are pretty locked in on what they're looking for and what they like on the pitching side. That's been the case for a while on the hitting side too. They know exactly what they want to look for. They had somebody in Matt Horvath who, when I talked to him at the end of last season, he was loving being an Orioles hitter and all the challenges and all the drills they do and all the ways they help him get better. I think that his combination of athleticism and the power that he just kind of inherently has is a good combination for what they want to work with. And I think that this is the time, if you go back the last couple of years, this is the time of the season that those guys who are in their first full baseball season, first full professional baseball season, kind of get that. Most of them, their season's over at this point. Their whole life, their season was over, and they had showcases and played summer ball, but their real season was over, and they're not that far into, this season. And you kind of get that realization. You get a routine. You learn what time to go to bed. You learn when to eat. You learn what you want to do pregame, and then all of a sudden, it starts to just become muscle memory, and your body gets used to it, and you're able to start producing on the field. You start to see that, and I think he's a clear case with that. I saw that Matthew Etzel, I believe, is going up. I don't know that there's a ton of other space in the Bowie outfield for anybody else, and I'm interested to see how long Matt Horvath is there as well. I don't know. I know for the previous era it was 250 or so plate appearances that those guys would get at Aberdeen, and then they get them out of there. We're probably getting close to that mark with some of these guys, and it might start to be movement season there.
Yeah, I was going to say an outfielder that was drafted in this past year is batting 300 with an 850 OPS, promoted to Double-A Bowie, 31 steals, 4 triples. But enough about Matthew Etzel. How you doing, Enrique Bradfield?
Going up to the top of the system, Kobe Mayo was performing really well before his rib injury. provided that he's back soon and is able to pick up where he left off, what kind of role could he fill in the major leagues this year?
Gosh, I mean, he is like what he can do would be so valuable to this team. I think there's a world where he could get like the Heston Kjerstad, like come up and hit off the bench, like play a little bit in September role. I don't think that is what like on 20, let's say 21 other teams, like that's not the role that somebody like Kobe Mayo would get once they were ready for the big leagues. It's just kind of where the Orioles are right now. I think the fact that he hasn't played, hasn't gotten the experience that you would expect someone to get to play in the big league outfield. The fact that he'd just be third base, first base at this point, DH, it's just a crowded environment for this team to be in. So it's not to say that he will not, does not deserve opportunities if he continues to do what he did before he got hurt, or B, wouldn't warrant them. It's just hard to know where that place would be. And then that's unfortunate for him, but I think that, I also think that there's value to that, like Heston Kjerstad won the Orioles a game last year. Like Kobe Mayo could do the same thing, and that would be really, really valuable because they are going to be at this rate playing, meaningful baseball games in September, not because they're trying to clinch a playoff spot, because they're trying to catch the Yankees and avoid going on the road and avoid a really tough path through the playoffs. So all these games are going to matter. If you are, a Connor Norby or a Kobe Mayo, and you get the chance to help the Orioles win one game this year, you want to be able to help them win more. But if you win this club one game, that makes a huge difference. And I don't think to say that it's challenging to see the way the roster is constructed right now, to say that it's challenging to see how Kobe Mayo fits into it is not a knock on that. It's the situation they're in, but it's also, a good challenge to either force that to be different, or B, take whatever small opportunities there are to do that and make the most of it.
Yeah, I was saying last week, it's unfortunate the timing of his injury. Obviously, never want to be hurt, but could have easily been him coming up to replace Mateo instead of Norby. And hopefully he gets another shot down the line, and I'm sure he will. I think he's going to be here for the next 7 to 9 plus years. I don't know. And that means it's my turn to ask a question. Speaking of young prospects, how do Jackson Holliday and Heston Kjerstad get another chance at the Major League roster? And how do they get to stick around this time?
Well, I guess I'll start with Jackson Holliday. I think that the Orioles are in a kind of unique position with the guys who would be keeping him off of it. And, we mentioned Jorge Mateo and how he has taken the opportunity that he got with Jackson Holliday going down and made second base his own. And like, it's going to take him losing it for there to be another everyday player at second base. I don't know that the same can be said for Ramon Arias and what he's done, the last week notwithstanding. I think it's going to be, injuries. Honestly, I think there could also be a time when the Orioles, maybe it'll be the flip side of what happened in spring training for Jackson Holliday, coming out of spring training for Jackson Holliday, where he was in Norfolk because the Orioles were going to face a lot of lefties. Maybe the margins the other way get so significant and the Orioles are in a really meaningful run of games against a righty, and Jorge Mateo has not been hitting righties and Ramon Arias is not hitting righties, and they need somebody who can come up and hit righties, and Jackson Holliday gets an opportunity that way. I think that's completely within the realm of possibility. And I also think that he would be a lot better for having the experience he had last time and come up and probably not go back down again. Heston Kjerstad is a tougher case because especially as Austin Hayes is starting to hit and, Ryan O'Hearn is continuing to be Ryan O'Hearn. There's only so many corner spots. And I guess the simple answer is that, A, somebody has to get hurt. B, Kyle Stowers has to perform at a level that warrants Heston Kjerstad taking a spot. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. So it's fascinating. And while I believe last episode I said, there's not this huge impact on like what guys can do going forward based on not succeeding in the opportunities they get and are having short opportunities. Like the reality is that once you're off the roster, you have to go back on somehow, and it's not really easy to do that right now. So I'm interested to see where those opportunities present themselves for those guys.
It's so much fun, though, to think about.
When you're ready to pop the question, the last thing you want to do is second-guess the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can design a one-of-a-kind ring with the ease and convenience of shopping online. Choose your diamond and setting. When you find the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code POD to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code POD at BlueNile.com for $50 off your purchase. BlueNile.com, code POD.
Guys like Jackson Holiday, we're not even having a conversation anymore about Jackson Holiday, at least right now, about he should be called up. He should be on the Major League roster. It's like he's in Norfolk, and the Orioles are rolling, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But I think this is the last question, unless Zach or Bob have any more. This actually comes from Colin in the Discord. The draft is coming up, and I know this is kind of tough to analyze, but do you have any feel for whether last year's top of the draft was an anomaly relative to who was available versus a shift in approach to how the Orioles are going to approach the draft now that they're picking lower in the first round and have the lower, smaller bonus pools moving forward?
So I think it's maybe a combination, which is like not a good way to answer that question, but like I don't think there was a lot of belief within the organization that Enrique Bradfield Jr. was going to be there when they were picking last year at 16 or whatever it was. So I think they took him, not necessarily the profile that they have targeted at the top of the draft, but a very good and potentially valuable and productive player who graded highly on their board, and he was there and they took him. I do believe that they are going to stick to their board no matter what. That's how they end up, in the drafts that they took 10 hitters before they took a pitcher. That's how it happened, because that was their pick came up. The money was the money, the board was the board, and that's who they took. So I don't think there's going to be necessarily any change in philosophy. I think there's probably going to be a change in the opportunity sets, where you might have it looking a little different in terms of like what the outcome is based on the fact that they don't have as much control over who's going to be there. It's harder to identify, when you're picking 1, 2, 3, like, what your first pool is going to be. And you have a pretty decent idea of who might be there in the second wave. Like now, that second wave preparation is kind of probably like their first wave preparation, where they're saying, all right, well, like maybe this guy will be here, maybe he'll fall for this reason. It's a lot different. I think they understand that the talent pool outside of those first few picks and the top of the draft is not as strong as it is below that, obviously, but I think that the systems they have in place will allow them to continue to identify the kinds of players that they want. I think you might see more mixed end products in terms of pitchers and hitters based on how the board falls. Brad Seelig used to tell us after every draft, we had a lot of pitchers high on our board and they all came off the board right before, and then it would be, but like, to read between the lines of what he's saying is that like they would have pitchers and like the pitchers would get taken and their spot would come up and there would be a hitter there and they would take it. They would just take the hitter because that's what the board said. They're going to follow the board pretty strongly, pretty firmly, and that's how, more than any kind of changing philosophy, until they say their philosophy has changed, any draft will be a result of that.
It's kind of funny if you eliminate the first pick in each draft from 2019 to 2022, you still have Gunnar, Jordan Westberg. Oh gosh, I've forgotten all of a sudden. Connor Norby and Dylan Beavers. So 4 pretty good players as well.
Yeah, not bad.
So as we usually do at the end of our minor league episodes, Bob, Nick, and I will shout out players outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 prospect list, usually a hitter and a pitcher. But John, I'll let you start out here. Just who are some under the radar guys you're going to be interested in watching the rest of the way this season?
I think in terms of hitters, God, I don't want to call them under the radar. I don't know if there are any. I honestly don't know that there are any under the radar hitters in the organization. I think there are. The low minors guys who are just like not really on the. This is I can't believe that just came out of my mouth. Yeah, they're not on the radar, so I guess they're under the radar. But like there's I think that outside of like the Delmarva low minors, like I'm really fascinated to see what the rest of the season looks like for Judd Fabian, which is not really under the radar, but you have a player who is what he does well is like his power, his defense, his ability to help out on the bases are all like real major league skills, and there's been some progress in the contact rates and getting to that power more often. And he's not an outside top 30 type of guy, but I think the upside of if it clicks, we're talking about somebody who's easily in the top 10 and helping the Orioles or any major league team. So I think there's been some progress there. I think that this is a big year for him to continue to show that. On the pitching side, I'm just going to say Zach Fruit. I just really enjoyed the Zach Fruit experience. I've mentioned him a couple times here, and I think that there's a lot of warranted excitement within the organization. And I think I'm going to get to see Michael Ferret this week in Aberdeen if he ends up pitching on Thursday as he was supposed to. I'm quite excited for that as well because like he's somebody that people talk about in the organization. Like, now that Luis De Leon's within driving distance and he's not some like mythical figure who's all the way out in Delmarva, now Ferret's the type of person that people are like, yeah, we got this other guy, but like front office people, player development people, like he comes up, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. I believe it will be Thursday, weather permitting and rotation permitting, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm going to two Aberdeen Ironbirds games this weekend. Saturday, I'll be in the broadcast booth with Michael, and Sunday for Father's Day, I'll be going with the family. So hopefully get to see some Zach Fruit action this weekend.
I think you may.
Yes.
And so
I guess I can jump in. And go with mine. I'm glad that so many people are talking about Michael Ferret because I think it was whatever facility he trained in the offseason. It was Tread. He's a Tread guy. They had a tweet before the season started, the increased velo, the completely revamped his repertoire. It was like, all right, he's a skinny D2, D3 draft pick, later round guy. We'll see what happens. And he blew expectations out of the water, I feel like, to start the year. But excited to read, hopefully, a future column on him. But I want to talk about my hitter real quick. I'm going to go with Blake Hunt. I talked some last week about why I really liked getting him in that Mike Baumann trade. But as I watched Norfolk this week, I really, really like Blake Hunt even more. And I am legitimately excited about what he could possibly bring to this organization. I know Adley's there. I know Basayo's coming. And this organization, every single level, it feels like, has an offensive-minded catcher who is hitting the ball very well, all the way down to the DSL. But Hunt homered twice last week and doubled twice. He hit 350 in 5 games. He looks like he's settling in pretty well. I am a big-time Blake Hunt fan now. And then my pitcher, I want to shout out Juan Rojas. Yennier Cano became the All-Star. Cade Povich in the big leagues. We just talked about him. Juan Nunez was having, I feel like, a real breakout between late last year and early this year, but he's on the IL now, and hopefully it's not for long. Hopefully it's not serious. But there's still one more piece to that Jorge Lopez deal, and it is Juan Rojas. I know he's battled, I think, multiple injuries, but he's still just 20 years old. He's in Delmarva. He's healthy again. He pitched 3 shutout innings last week with no hits, no walks, struck out 4. I know Baseball America had him on some breakout prospect lists entering last year, so hopefully he can kind of put the injuries behind him, and we'll see what he can do the rest of this year.
Good picks. I'm also going down low to the under-the-radar Delmarva hitter. I have Anutis Mordon, another power-hitting catcher, similar to Blake Hunt, maybe more of a first base prospect long term. I'm not exactly sure what the defense is like, but the bat looks like it's going to play. In 2023 in the FCL, he batted .274 with an OPS just under 900. and that was good for a 130 WRC plus. He's only batting 228 this year in Delmarva, but really it's just his BABIP is 80 points lower than it was last year. Different run environment as well, so he's batting 228 with the 774 OPS, which is also right around a 130 WRC plus 126. And since May 19th, he's batting 263 with a 979 OPS, 176 WRC plus, 333 ISO, walking almost 15% of the time, and striking out 17.6% of the time. So just think he's been up and I think he was in and out of our top 50 a little bit at the beginning of the year, but another guy that probably as some graduations come in, he's going to be a clear top 50 guy. And pitching wise, I'm going with Brian Bautista. Down in the FCL, he had a 3.60 ERA for them last year, and repeating the level, he's got a 4.91 ERA, but the FIP is 3.68. And if you take out his first start of the season, he has a 2.70 ERA over 16.2 innings with 19 strikeouts and only 6 walks. So shout out to Brian Bautista, who will probably be in Delmarva soon.
I'll go with my guys now, starting with the pitcher. Dylan Hyde has been excellent all season at Bowie, but he has now gone 4 straight outings without giving up a run, and he was particularly good last week against Binghamton. 3 no-hit innings with 4 strikeouts in his outing on Thursday, and then he followed it up with a save on Sunday, an inning and 2/3 scoreless. Hyde is one of those pure reliever prospects that we've talked about from time to time on this show, and I think he warrants more notice so far than what he's done at Bowie this year. ERA barely over 1 in 26 1/3 innings pitched to this point in the season. And then for my hitter, I'm going to go with Silas Ardway. First of all, baseball reference, thank you for finally putting the pronunciation key in there so that we can straighten this up. But Ardway has now hit safely in his last 3 games, including a home run on Sunday. I really hope that this is him climbing out of the hole because he did hit well in April, only to struggle in May. Hopefully this past weekend marks the beginning of his turnaround. And now, John, we'll go back to you. Thank you for joining us this week. 2 episodes. What can we expect from the coverage over at the Banner?
Gosh, I feel like I've kind of I've hinted at a lot of it. I think I have something coming up in the near future about some of the AA hitters who are having good seasons so far. We're gonna dive into some draft and development stuff on the pitching side. I'm also doing a lot of reporting on stories that I could write when we have our baby next month. So some of these might not see the light of day for a little bit, but also have a couple of things on the big league side I'm pretty interested in following up on. So there's going to be, it's that time of year. I feel like things are just humming. Andy and Danielle at the Banner are doing great stuff on a daily basis. I am writing less frequently, but I'm spending a lot of time with the affiliates trying to see as many of these pitchers as possible. Like I mentioned, I'm going to try to put together some kind of ranking. I think I don't know how I'm going to do it or what format or how it could possibly be good or honestly, who outside of this call right now who would care. But I think it's a useful exercise to try and capture this moment in time. And that's something I'm going to start endeavoring towards pretty soon.
You do it. We will push it out. We will push out on every social media channel and as often as we can. Sounds great.
You'll know what goes into it. You'll know what goes into it. You do it yourselves. It's a lot of work but it's rewarding. It's fun.
And Zach, list the 25 social media channels we will push that out from, please.
Yes, and we are all over social media. We're over at Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also at Substack, Orioles on the Verge.substack.com. And don't forget to check out our Patreon community. You can get bonus daily coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself, and monthly top 50 updates. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you, John, for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. We'll do number 12 at some point soon, I assume.
Definitely sometime, maybe as we get closer to the playoffs, hopefully here in Birdland. That does it for this week's episode. Orioles on the Verge is presented by Bet Online. For Bob Phelan, Nick Stevens, and Zach Spedden, you've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
You know when you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.